Final exam. Question 1. To complete the last 3 selections for a jury in a local civic trial, suppose the pool of 10 remaining candidates is comprised of 6 women and 4 men. Assuming the selections are made randomly, what is the probability of picking only female jurors for the remaining 3 positions? About 10%, about 33%, about 27%, about 17%. Question 2. So you want to be a millionaire and you have 45 years to achieve it. What lump sum could you invest now to reach your goal, assuming that on average you receive an annual rate of return of 9% compounded monthly? About $135, about $17,688, about $19,802, about $3,457. Question 3. The standard deviation of a dataset is a measurement that quantifies how the numbers in the dataset vary from the mean, how the numbers in the dataset vary from the third quartile, how the numbers in the dataset vary from the median, the variability of the numbers in the dataset relative to each other. Question 4. Consider a consumer survey of shopping preferences conducted by sampling households in southeastern Idaho. If these households are chosen by selecting 25 households from within each of the zip code areas of southeastern Idaho, then this sampling method is known as simple random sampling, convenience sampling, stratified sampling, systematic sampling. Question 5. Consider a statistical study conducted in private exercise gyms across your state that aims to measure the effect of weightlifting technique on muscle mass. The variable of interest in this study is private exercise gyms, muscle mass, weightlifting techniques, statistical measurements in general. Question 6. You drive an average of 325 miles per week in a vehicle that gets only 16 miles per gallon overall. With the cost of gasoline at $3.15 per gallon, approximately how much would you save each year on gasoline if you drove a car that got 38 miles per gallon instead? About $700, about $1,900, about $1,200, about $3,300. Question 7. How many people at the party, shown in the Venn diagram below, are not men? 31, 44, 28, 16, Question 8. A family is planning on spending some time in Italy and hopes to rent a car for part of the trip. They find that gasoline is selling for about 1.36 euros per liter and that 1 euro is currently converting to 1.3094 US dollars. Knowing that 1 liter is approximately 0.26 gallons, you calculate the cost of gasoline in Italy in US dollars per gallon to be $5.97, $8.19, $6.85, $7.24. Question 9. The Woodruffs need to purchase some special mulch for their landscaping project. They want the mulch to be approximately 3 inches deep, consistently spread over a rectangular area that measures 20 feet by 40 feet. How many cubic yards of mulch would be required for the project? About 66.7 yards cubed. About 7.4 yards cubed. About 233.3 yards cubed. About 89.9 yards cubed. Question 10. Premise. If Sarah qualifies for an internship, she will not attend college next semester. Premise. Sarah does not qualify for an internship. Conclusion. Sarah will attend college next semester. This argument is considered to be invalid, logically equivalent, valid but unsound, valid and sound. Question 11. It is unlikely the variable x causes changes to variable y when a scatter diagram of the two variables show points lying close to a straight line. There is no apparent correlation between x and y. There is a negative correlation between x and y. There is a positive correlation between x and y. Question 12. A local civic club has 20 members. To reorganize their leadership, they will need to select a new president, vice president, and secretary. How many ways can this be done if the leadership positions can be filled by any of the club members? 6,840, 327, 1,140, 598. Question 13. Imagine going to an electronics conference that is selling raffle tickets for $1 at the door. The prizes to be given away are a $225 large flat-screen television, 2 $75 MP3 players, and 3 $20 digital jump drives. Knowing that exactly 500 raffle tickets are sold, what is the expected value of each ticket you buy? Use the cash value of the prizes along with their respective probabilities, and remember that a raffle ticket costs you $1. Negative 13 cents, negative 21 cents, positive 17 cents, positive 4 cents. Question 14. Assume that a married couple knows in advance that they will ultimately have 4 children, and that either gender is equally likely. What is the probability that they will have 2 boys and 2 girls? If The order in which they have their children is not important. 3 out of 8, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 16, 1 out of 2. Question 15. Which of the following statements about loans is true? If you make extra principal payments on a home loan in order to pay it off sooner, the impact of your extra payments on reducing the outstanding balance will be greater near the beginning of the repayment period rather than the end. Assuming you do not pay any extra principal during a typical 30-year home mortgage, your debt will be cut in half after 15 years have passed. With a fixed rate car loan, the amount of interest you pay each month is constant. A 5-year car loan will have higher monthly payments than a 3-year car loan if the amount borrowed and the APR are the same for both loans. Question 16. If the money in your retirement fund grows 8.5% per year on average, what is an approximate doubling time for your money? About 824 years, about 12.1 years, cannot be determined without knowing the amount of money in your fund. About 8.2 years. Question 17. If your vehicle loses half of its value in 10 years, what is an approximate decay rate for the value of your car? About 3% per year, about 5% per year, about 7% per year, about 9% per year. Question 18. Given that the probability of an event occurring is 0.17, we would consider the likelihood of the event happening to be certain, likely, impossible, unlikely. Question 19. Assuming a 6.75% annual rate of return, compounded quarterly, how much interest would a person earning in a savings plan that has an initial deposit of $250 along with deposits of $50 at the end of each quarter for 20 years? About $5,042, about $9,292, about $8,338, about $4,293. Question 20. The Marshalls have acquired $3,500 in credit card debt and are trying to figure out how much interest they would save if they were to pay off their credit card in 2 years instead of making the minimum monthly payment. Knowing that their APR is 16.5% and assuming they do not add additional debt to the card, what monthly payment would allow them to pay off their credit card debt in 2 years? $153.87, $204.76, $172.21, $192.78. Question 21. Knowing that IQ scores are normally distributed, with an average score of 100 points and a standard deviation of 15, approximately what percent of people have an IQ score equal to or above 115? About 16%, about 34%, about 1%, about 5%. Question 22. In 2009, Henry and Emily were married and were filing their taxes jointly. They had 2 children who qualified as exemptions, but not as child tax credits, and they were claiming the standard deduction. Knowing that their adjusted gross income was $72,520, calculate the 2009 federal income tax, rounded to the nearest dollar, that they would be required to pay. Use the marginal tax rate table found on Exam 4 formula sheet. $6,143, $6,978, $7,238, $8,333. Question 23. Consider the statement. If the measures of 2 angles add up to 180 degrees, then the 2 angles are supplementary. The inverse of this conditional statement is, if the measures of 2 angles do not add up to 180 degrees, then the 2 angles are not supplementary. If the measures of the 2 angles add up to 180 degrees, then the 2 angles are not supplementary. If the 2 angles are not supplementary, then the measures of the 2 angles do not add up to 180 degrees. If the 2 angles are supplementary, then the 2 angles add up to 180 degrees. Question 24. Assume Gallup poll is doing a randomized political survey to estimate the percentage of Americans who would give the U.S. president a favorable rating in job performance. Knowing that the sample size is 900 participants and that 47% of those surveyed gave the president a favorable rating, calculate a 95% confidence interval for the true percentage of all Americans who would give a favorable rating for the president. Between 42.8% and 51.2%, between 43.7% and 50.3%, between 46.1% and 48.1%, between 44.7% and 49.4%. Question 25. If the Nielsen family had a monthly budget set up which showed their expenses of $3,781, payroll deductions of $1,296, a savings withdrawal plan of $709, and a monthly income of $5,672. What would have been their cash flow? Negative $114. They are bringing in less than what they are spending. $0. They are bringing in exactly what they are spending. Positive $114. They are bringing in more than what they are spending. Their cash flow cannot be determined from the given information. Question 26. Suppose a citizen filing her taxes is currently in the 25% income tax bracket and is planning to claim her charitable donations, which amount to $14,700, as a tax deduction. What is the true cost to her of the donation she has made after receiving the benefit of the tax deduction? $18,375, $11,025, $14,700, $9,245. Question 27. You are a professional athlete whose league requires a randomly selected drug test every 2 months. Each time a simple random sample of 10 athletes is drawn out of the 100 athletes in the league, and it is possible to be selected more than once during the year, what is the probability of you personally being randomly selected at least once during the calendar year? 0.167, 0.400, 0.368, 0.469. Question 28. Identify which of the following statements regarding bar graphs is true. A bar graph is used to compare qualitative data through the use of bar heights. Bar graphs can only be used with quantitative data. Bar graphs are synonymous with histograms. Bars in a bar graph cannot be sorted from high to low or low to high. Question 29. Imagine a scenario in which a population of amoebas doubles once every day. You place a single amoeba in a jar on March 1st. If the first doubling occurs on March 2nd, how many amoebas will there be on March 12th? Assume that you count the amoebas on March 12th after they have doubled for that day. 2,048, 4,096, 1,024, 8,192. Question 30. Suppose you have lost a restaurant receipt and cannot remember the original bill before the tip was added. You do remember that the bill totaled $28.97 after adding a 15% tip for the waiter. What was the original bill prior to the tip? $25.19, $24.77, $25.08, $24.62.